So I click the go live button. I think the YouTube should be good.
Yeah, we are live.
Yeah. So let's wait for 12. 1 more minute to go.
Yeah, let's wait 1 more minute. By the way, hello everyone.
Yeah, hello.
So you're waiting for 1 more minute, just for to be punctual, I suppose. And then we'll start at 8 p.m. Singapore time and noon London time. Yeah, very nice to see you as well, guys. Thank you very much for joining this session, and hello to everyone.
Hello, I think it's a time. And hello, everyone. Welcome to our year-end AMA together with me and also Amrit. And it's been a crazy year. And since end of last year, we started Altlayer. We made a lot of achievements, not just on the technical part and also on the BD and the marketing side. And it's always grateful to have all of you together with us. And today we'll just do a quick year-end sort of roundup with a 10-minute presentation. After that, as we shared earlier, right? So we have all you guys to ask the questions on the YouTube, and then we will pick up some questions to address here. And meanwhile, we will also select some of the lucky guys to award our OT sort of icons for them. Okay, let's start with this very short summary for this crazy 2022 for Altlayer. As some of you know, right? I believe like probably some of you previously listened to my talks and basically you know like what's Altlayer and what kind of problem we are solving. And basically, the problem Altayer wants to solve is about the stability issues, not just for L1s or general purpose L2s, but also for decentralized applications. For the past few years, a lot of the general purpose L1, L2, they're trying to solve the scaling issues where better consensus protocol, sharding, and various some other algorithms. But in the end, as you know, right, for the past 3 years, we have so many popular applications like NFT, games, and even DeFi protocols. Examples are like X Infinity, DYDX. So they just have so many users and so many requests. And if you put all of them on a single general purpose L1, L2, it's just a congested network, and sometimes it can make the network down. Example, just like these crazy like empty projects, especially for their empty mint, as you can see, right? A bunch of gas walls and also network congestions during their sale or during their campaigns. So at Altayer, right, we are trying to provide so-called like elastic scaling solutions for the Web3, not just the general purpose L1s, L2, but also for decentralized applications. As you know, right, for a lot of the decentralized applications, you want to serve not just like 100 users or 1,000 users. In the end, we want to serve like millions or even tens of millions users. And some applications even say we want to serve billions of users. In that case, like you definitely need some high throughput infrastructure. So what you can have right now, either some L1s, L2s can provide you like sort of 1,000 throughput transactions per second. But at the same time, you also want some customization. So for example, you want gas lists, and sometimes you want to have bridges to multiple chains. So on our layer side, right, as you can see, we want to provide these elastic and also modular and even better customizations for the infrastructure we provide for you. And if you look at our value proposition, right, performance-wise, definitely we can precise a few hundred, like so a few thousand like TPS. But at the same time, you can also configure your time to finality for each block, like can be less than 2 seconds, or for some of our game partners, they 1 second. Meanwhile, like we can also support like EVM and WASM in the future, probably some other virtual machines to support better like sort of scenarios from the partners. Beyond that, right, sometimes you want to have multiple like bridges to multiple chains. In that case, earlier we can also support that kind of scenarios. So on technical front, right, as you can see, we can provide this kind of on-demand scaling solution. You just click a bunch of buttons and then we spin off a dedicated L2 for you. You can process like a few thousand transactions per second, meanwhile with very low block time, and can also support multiple VM with current execution layer. Beyond that, you can also make a guest list or first come, first serve, just to serve your users in a better manner. With this idea and also some prototype in the early of this year, we got some good fundraise from the best of the crypto industry like Polychain, Grab, and also Jump Capital. Meanwhile, along with some other very famous angels like Large, Sean, Gav, Ron, King, and Tagging. With their support, right, we have relatively sufficient runway to support the team to have decent like technical development and also business development together with marketing outreach. And in early September, right, as you can see, we launched the very first EVM fully equivalent testnet. And meanwhile, with very short block time, and right now we already provide the bridge to multiple chains like Ethereum, Polygon, and the BNB chain. And for past few campaigns, especially the Ultimate, right? Probably all you guys already tried the bridge. It's very fast, and we can also like do the refund immediately after the campaign is done. If you haven't tried out the testnet, please just get some free tokens from the foresight. Meanwhile, you can just deploy your contract, any contract, and also try some interaction with the testnet. And early next year, we just launch a new version, and you will see faster finality, and meanwhile with better sort of UI and user experience. Beyond the technical development side, right, as you can see, we also grow the team from 6 people in the early days, and right now we have around 25 people. Not just on the like technical side, we have super senior engineers like in the space. Basically, we work together since a few years ago together to build like sort of public blockchains and also bridging solutions. And at the same time, we are also having very strong background like BD and marketing people to help to grow the ecosystem together. Beyond that, we are so grateful to have like over 7,000 followers on Twitter and also 6,000 like members for Discord. Beyond that, we are very glad to have over 20 ambassadors to help coordinate all the community members, meanwhile, to help us to grow the ecosystem and community together. Beyond that, as you can see, right, we are gradually announcing some partnerships around like sort of privacy and also on the DID gaming part and also even payment part. We are trying to help the partners who are reaching to us to provide our elastic scaling solutions for them. Meanwhile, we are also trying to collect feedback from them to refine our technical part for providing a much better solution for a lot of these partners. And beyond that, as you can see, right, from the Twitter or from the Discord, you can see this year is also a busy year for us to guide the invitation to give talks at Ethereum DevCon, Missouri Midnight, and ECC. And meanwhile, we are also invited to be the judges for East Berlin, East Lisbon, and some other hackathons and events to help the community members to build on top of Altlayer. And I think one of the most exciting moments that this year we got Amrit, my close friend and partner, to be part of the team to help us to grow the team and also build a better strategy for the global operations as COO. And then I hand over the remaining part to Amrit, and he will explain more about the achievements and also our plan for the next year?
Yeah, thank you, Yauchi. So, hello everyone again. Very quickly, I think I forgot to introduce myself. So, my name is Amit Kumar. Um, Me and Yauchi, we go back, I don't know, 7 years ago. I think we were a part of the same lab. We were doing research together, and then we later started a company together called Zilica. And now I'm with again helping out my friend Yauchi on different aspects of Altlayer. So Yauchi was mentioning. So before I saw someone asking questions about when they can ask questions. So the idea basically for this this session is we'll give you about 10 minutes of kind of a roundup of what we achieved in 2022, what we plan to do in 2023, and then once we have finished the presentation, we'd open up the floor for all sorts of questions. So bear with us. Let us take you through a couple more slides, and then we'd be into AMA very quickly after that. So very quickly on the spotlight. So since we started, we have our news and announcements have gotten great coverage across different and well-known publications like of the likes of CoinDesk, the Block, and the Cointelegraph. And we have also published several one could call thought pieces on why application chain thesis is something that's still valid and is going to be even more prominent in the years to come. At the same time, in order to do better outreach, we also started a podcast, or you could call it a video cast of some sort, where called AltView, where we interview very well-known people in the space, building and solving very hard and challenging problems in the infrastructure space. And so, if you haven't listened to any of those podcasts yet, I invite you to go and join and subscribe to that AltView channel. We have interviewed people from Infura, interviewed people from Flashboard, and a bunch of other people are lined up to join our podcast. So do subscribe to that channel as well. So yeah, we also became in 2022. We also became an honorary fellow of the Celestia Modular Fellow Program. Celestia, as some of you may know, it's one of the, I would say, probably the first project that started this idea of modular blockchains, and they are actually building a data availability solution for different let's say execution layers. And so we were invited as an honorary fellow to join their modular program. We were delighted to be a part of that program as well. Lastly, very quickly, when we launched our ORT Open on the OpenSea, we had actually the top 5 NFT projects on OpenSea. So thank you very much for all the love that you have shown to ORT NFT collection. So now moving over. So of course, we have been busy building. We have been busy building the Flash Layer product, something that we have been talking about, where you could instantiate blockchains essentially, or what we call execution layers, and you can basically discharge them, or you can destroy them when you don't need them anymore. And also the persistent chain, which is basically a traditional blockchain but designed for applications. So specifically for applications. So while we have been busy building this, we also felt like it's important for us to test some of these products in real world scenarios. So we ran about 3 campaigns so far. One of the first campaign that we ran to test the viability of our solutions in the wild was this with the first event that was called the OG Badge NFT Mint event. The whole event was designed to create a scenario where you would have a lot of transactions that will go to the network in a very short span of time. So, for example, we made the whitelisting process rather straightforward. You just have to go and do a few Gleam tasks, and you would be whitelisted quite straightforward from that. And so we had about 12,000 people who were whitelisted. There was no KYC. So, you just have to follow us on Twitter and, join our Discord and a bunch of things like that. And then you are a whitelisted participant for the campaign. The entire event was free. So you didn't have to buy the NFT. You didn't have to pay for the NFT. And you didn't have to pay for the gas price as well. So we actually had airdropped gas tokens for people. So you didn't have to pay any single penny to actually get the NFT. And so the entire campaign was, as I said, was designed to create a huge number of transactions, or drive a huge number of transactions in a short interval of time. And we indeed see that. So basically, during that time, we saw about 50 TPS. This is not the capacity. We can achieve much higher. The same network was tested for about 2,500 TPS just before the launch of the event. And all the NFTs were actually sold out within 18 seconds. So that popular. It was actually not sold out, more like it was allocated because you didn't have to pay for these NFTs. So they were allocated within 18 seconds. And to give you this sense of this number, 50 TPS, during the time when Optimism was doing its OP airdrop, the average TPS throughout the day was about 5.6 TPS. And if you look at the Arbitrum, so Arbitrum did a marketing campaign called Nitro. And during the day in which Nitro was extremely hyped and popular, around that time, the average TPS throughout the day was about 3.3 TPS. So you can see how easy it was to, and for those who actually participated in that event, you could see how friendly it was to actually interact with the flash layer. And the entire experience was gasless. So you didn't have to pay for any gas at all. So that was the first event. It was a free mint event designed to attract a lot of transactions in a short span of time. The second event was done with the goal to deploy a real-world on-chain blockchain game on a flash layer. So we actually took Dark Forest as our premier application. So it's a Dark Forest. For those who played the game, you would know that it's a game that's fully on-chain. So every single transaction that you make is an on-chain transaction. And so we hosted that on one of our flash layers that has a TPS that has a latency about 1 to 2 seconds. And in fact, I played that game for a while until I couldn't cope up with the experts who came in and took all my planets away. But basically, it was, when you played that game, you'd feel that it was actually not even on a blockchain. So the experience was completely different. It felt like a traditional game, and that was extremely powerful. So during that, so we hosted the game for about 2 days, and we received about 90,000 transactions per day. So about, roughly speaking, about 200,000 transactions across 2 days. And so that's, again, to give you a sense of this number, 200,000 transactions, this is about 60% of the volume that Arbitrum was doing on a daily basis around that time, and about 90% of the volume that Optimism was doing at that time. So imagine something like Dark Forest hosted on a chain, general purpose chain like, let's say, Optimism Arbitrum, and imagine one single application driving 90% of your transaction volume. You can create all sorts of issues for the underlying blockchain. Gas price will go up, things like that. And nothing like that happened. So if you played the Dark Forest game on Flashley, you'd have seen that the experience was flawless. You wouldn't even feel like it was actually hosted on a blockchain. So the third campaign was the most recent one, the OOT NFT marketing campaign, where we basically, this time it was not free mint when we wanted to mimic a real scenario where you would have to pay for these NFTs. So we actually did we actually created a OOT NFT collection. OOT is our mascot. And this collection was sold out within about 100 seconds to people from 3 communities. So BNB chain community, the Polygon POS community, and Ethereum community. So you could take your assets, BNB, Matic, on Ether, you could bridge them over to the flash layer, and you could then go and buy these funny looking OTs. And so it was, we had about 35,000 people participating in that event. And in the end, again, the execution was flawless. You could see all these assets going back to OpenSea. And then we became trending very quickly on OpenSea after all the trading volume. I can't recall, but within a matter of hours, we were doing about 40 Ether volume on OpenSea. So thank you very much for all the love that you have shown to OT. And just a gentle reminder, 3 of the best questions that will be asked during the AMA will be given a special NFT, OOT NFT, at the end of the event. So thank you very much. Now, this was something that we have done in 2022. We did in 2022. We achieved these things in 2022. What are we looking forward to in 2023? Right. So far, our focus has been on 2 key products. One was what we call a flash layer, and the second one was the persistent layer. Right. Our goal, when we talk to all these partners, over the year, we realize that there's a need to build a kind of an open, decentralized execution network of some sort, where basically it would be something like AWS, so Amazon Web Services. You'd go to Amazon Web Service and you'd say, okay, I want a certain instance with this much of, let's say, RAM, this much of computing power, and can you give me that, or this much of this type of operating system running on it? And the system, basically, Amazon basically gives you that service. So has that, instantiates that instance and provides you that. So you believe that there's a need to build something like that in a crypto space, where you might come with, say, okay, I want an execution layer that, let's say, that runs optimistic execution environment. You want that to be running EVM runtime, and you want it to be, let's say, application specific. So you have to specify all these characteristics in a request, and that request will go to this open, decentralized execution hub, and the execution hub will then be responsible to give you, or instantiate you rather, this execution layer that fits and suits your needs. So we are aiming to go much broader than, and much general than just 2 products, and it will be a much more decentralized, open, and universal open execution network for all Web3 applications. And most importantly, if you go to the next slide, most importantly, it's going to be very user-friendly. So for example, today, most of the tools that are out there to spin up some of these execution layers are very SDK heavy. So for example, you need to understand how some of these SDKs work to actually be able to deploy some of these execution layers. And we feel like that has to go away. So we are targeting a kind of a no-code framework where you'd have a dashboard, you'd go to this dashboard and you'd click a few buttons and you specify your request. And in the end, the system will basically, or the execution network will basically spin up and instantiate an execution layer for you that fits you and suits your needs. So this no-code framework is going to be super powerful because you don't need to be a developer to actually go and launch a Flash layer, but anyone, any normal user could still go and click a few buttons and have his Flash layer ready for deployment. And by the way, it's not just a deployment that is something to experiment with, but it's a deployment that can go into production within, let's say, something like 10-15 minutes. So imagine basically clicking 2 buttons and having an entire blockchain set up for you by yourself. So that's how powerful we feel Altlayer can become in the years to come. And I think that's it. So thank you very much for your patience. I think it's time to kind of open up the floor for questions. Gentle reminder again, we are at a time where the COVID rules are still there, so it's good to have some FaceTime with all you guys. And thank you very much for joining in and tuning in today. Again, a gentle reminder: we will have a special ORT NFT. We'll give them away to 3 best questions. So prepare your questions, and we have collected a lot of questions, and we are monitoring questions on YouTube. Unfortunately, we may not have time to answer every single question out there, but we'll try our best to handle and answer questions that we feel are most pertinent and something that is common among most people from the community. So with this said, Yao-Chi, let's start answering some questions. You want to start with the first couple of them?
Yeah. Yeah, Marie, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. So I think this is a question that came up a little bit earlier, which is not part of this, but I think I would ask Yao-Chi to answer this. So we often talk about, Altlayer as an elastic scaling solution. And someone asked us, what does it mean when we say elastic scaling? What does it actually mean in practice?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Like when we keep talking about like the elastic execution layer or elastic solution, right? The idea that if you look at this like sort of the Web 2 or the cloud services, we already have these kind of similar services in Web 2. That means, like, for example, when we run an application or when we build an application, right? At the beginning, we don't really have a lot of users, to be honest. At the beginning, probably you just have a few hundred or even a few thousand users, right? So in that case, like probably you just need a sort of a dedicated rollup or L2 to handle this amount of users. But gradually, if luckily we can really grow the business to another scale. For example, we grow the business from like just a few hundred users to tons or thousand users. So in that case, like gradually from a few hundred requests, but later on we may have like millions of requests. Once we grow the business to another level to serve, like for example, a million user, right? In that case, I don't think a dedicated L2 can really host or serve all the users or number of requests. So in that case, it's sort of the elastic scaling will come into the picture. So at the beginning, for example, for your business, right? We build like sort of empty project or a game project. For the first 100,000 user, right? I can spin off a dedicated L2 using Altlayer to serve these first 100,000 users. But later on, once the skills, the skill increases, like we need to serve another 100,000 euro, right? In that case, you can just click a bunch of buttons and basically you can spin off another dedicated L2 to serve the second 100,000 users. Yeah, granularly, as you can see, right? With more users to use my application or service, I can just like vary the Altlayer. I don't need to sort of do an extra work. I just click a bunch of buttons, just similar to AWS, right? And then I can spin off multiple L2s or rollups to handle different set of users. In that case, I can grow my business from just serving a few hundred users to serving a few like million users. Yeah, that's sort of one way of scaling with the elastic scaling. Basically, with the number of users is increasing, and we can spin of more like sort of L2s via Altlayer to serve these users. Another part is that for example, for NFT project or game projects or some sort of campaigns for a DeFi project, right? It only lasts for a few seconds or a few minutes. Like we know that we did these campaigns for OG Badge Mint and also Ultimate, right? The first one lasts sort of only 18 seconds. The second one was done within 100 seconds. So in that case, we don't need a dedicated L2 to last forever. So in that case, we just need a like sort of spin off a flash layer for a few seconds or a few minutes or a few days, right? And later on, like with Altlayer protocol itself can roll up all the NFT and also the remaining balances to different chains, just like we did for the ultimate. In that case, as you can see, right, dedicated L2 only lasts for a few seconds, a few hours, a few days. But once you don't need it, you can terminate it. So you don't need to really maintain this kind of service or this kind of chain forever. So that's the second point about the elastic scaling. Actually, the last point I want to make is really about like for a lot of the application, right? Once you want to scale, if you want to build your own app chain or build your own infrastructure, you have to hire at least 5 to 10 senior blockchain developers to build, even using like Cosmos or Substrate, some other like sort of frameworks. And beyond that, probably you also need to pay for the infrastructure fees. And meanwhile, the maintenance is another headache, especially you don't have the background of building a public blockchain previously. In that case, roughly within a year, if you want to build a brand new infrastructure, you basically need to spend like minimum 1 to 2 million US dollars to rebuild the infrastructure for your own application. But with Altlayer, I can promise it's much, much cheaper. So you just need to click a bunch of buttons and immediately we can spin off the rollup and attach to a dedicated L1. And you don't need to care about like how you maintain a network, how you fix some bugs, and everything will be done automatically and the security derived from the L1. So from the 3 points, right, one that basically Altlayer can scale with the number of users you have. The second part that regarding the duration, you want to have the L2, you can define yourself. And the third part that since everything is automatic, you don't really need to hire your own team to really maintain all the sort of infrastructure for yourself. Like all the things will be done by Altlayer. Yeah.
Okay, let me take another technical question and then we'll go towards slightly less technical and business and marketing driven question. So one other question that someone named 0x Nobody asked, which is, and the question is, and given the development of the modular blockchain paradigm and the separation of the execution layer from the rest of the functions, what advantages does Altlayer have over other projects? So it's pretty true that, you know, we have come to a space where it is pretty established that legacy blockchains, what people often call it, you know, chains like, let's say, classical Ethereum 1.0 or any other chain that you see today, that do consensus, settlement, and execution, they are not scalable in that way. And so modular blockchain theory basically says that if you separate some of these components outside of the base chain, you can actually get much better throughput. And that's kind of why you see, even in the Ethereum space, layer twos like Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, Starkware, Starknet, and so on as execution layers. The thing is, if you look at execution layer space today, right? You have all sorts of execution layers, and that each have their own characteristics. For example, let's say if you look at, let's say, ZK Sync. So ZK Sync gives you one type of execution layer that is runs EVM as the runtime. It has, let's say, ZK-based proof systems. So it has validity proof behind it, and it's something that is mostly around Ethereum. But imagine something like, let's say, you as a user, you could say, okay, I want to build WASM-based runtime. I want a ZK rollup, but with WASM running on it. And I want this to be secured by some other chain. For example, let's say, I don't know, Near, for example. So in the end, what's going to happen is this entire space will have all sorts of characteristics, and all these execution layers will have serve different purposes. So for example, one chain could be something like, okay, it will have ZK on it. It will have EVM on it. If it will be designed for, let's say, a certain type of application use case. For example, it could be for just specific applications. It could be for sector, for example, it could be DeFi chain, for example, and so on. So there'll be a need at some point, very sooner rather than later, where you want to go to this platform and ask for a certain type of execution layer. And this is exactly what we're building. So when all these monolithic chains end up doing mostly settlement and, let's say, consensus, and execution moves out, execution will be our bread and butter, essentially. So we would like to target all the execution need that comes from all sorts of developers. So this is kind of one answer to your question on where Altlayer sits when some of these things, when the separation actually gets established over time. Let's take another question from a question about if Ethereum achieves 100K TPS according to the roadmap, do you think that the application-specific rollup is still in need? So let me answer this question. So irrespective of what throughputs your underlying chain proposes, if that underlying chain is a general purpose chain, for example, something like Ethereum, even if it is able to do, let's say, I don't know, 1 million TPS, you'd still have applications that will need some sort of flexibility in how they want to use the underlying chain. For example, let's say, that's kind of why, for example, DYDX recently announced their departure from Ethereum, and they're building their own Cosmos-based chain. Because when you move outside, when you become big enough and you want to move outside of underlying chain and build your own chain, it gives you all sorts of benefits because you can customize your chain in all sorts of ways. You can provide better user experience. For example, let's say you could build a chain today for your application that actually gives, let's say, has zero gas fee, for example. This is something that's very hard to do generally speaking, on a general purpose layer one. So a lot of benefits comes from an application-specific chains or application-specific rollups, and this is exactly why Altlayer and the products that we're building make sense. Let's take a question on a non-technical question this time, which is this is something for Yao-Chi. What are your marketing strategies, and how do you plan on implementing global adoption?
Yeah, so currently, as you can see, right, regarding the marketing strategy, so like for this year, we have a bunch of invitation to give talks in all the top tier like blockchain conferences like Ethereum, DevCon, ECC, and Sarah Midnight. And for the next like year, we will definitely try to speak as much as possible in the major conferences just to share about like the progress of Altlayer, meanwhile also the new products we are providing for the market, especially for the next generation decentralized applications. Beyond that, we are also planning to collaborate and also participate in all these kind of hackathons or some other like sort of events to demonstrate the capability of Altlayer and just try to push like sort of the dashboards we will have next year. For the developers, for them to try out. And meanwhile, early next year, once we have the dashboard ready, we will have some invite-only tests for a bunch of our community members, so you can really try out this no-code dashboard to launch a dedicated L2 for yourself. You just need to click a bunch of buttons and configure the parameters you want. And then immediately, probably within a few minutes, you can just spin off a dedicated L2 with Foresight, Explorer, and in that case, you can immediately see it, right? And beyond that, regarding the global adoption, because right now we really have lots of, BD leads in the team, basically a lot of projects, especially NFT and games, they reach out to us and trying to collaborate with us for their NFT mint. So the thing like internally, one thing like for some partner, we are trying to provide a customized solution for them. That means that they give us some their requirements or demands. We can collaborate and help them to build like sort of the system. But at the same time, internally, we are trying to automate everything as much as possible. So that means later on for NFT mint or some other generic flash layer requirements and some add-ons like multi-sig wallet and some extra setup, we will just make it automatic. So where the dashboard, you just need to click some buttons and immediately you can start your NFT mint, or you can also start to deploy some like multi-sig wallet into your dedicated L2. Yeah, as you can see, right, at Altlayer, we are still quite technical driven. So that means we will provide basically a series of brand new products to the market. Hope we can really benefit the entire market and entire space. And beyond that, it's really like we try to get more and more grassroots developers to build the next generation applications I just mentioned, right? Once we have the super scalable infrastructure, and then you can spin off as many rollups as you want and to support your social application, DeFi, MT, and game application. So what kind of new application you can build? Right now, probably due to various limitations of general purpose L1s, L2s, you have to think about like you need to consider the gas fee and also the throttling and the network congestion and sometimes the reorganization of the blocks for different chains. But with your dedicated like unlimited rollups, like what kind of new application you can build with Altlayer. That's something we are trying to collaborate with as many partners as possible. Meanwhile, we are trying to work closely with our community developers to figure out. Yeah.
Okay, let me take one question. It's a non-technical question from Redmi 3 Second. What is the main criterion for selecting projects that will be attracted to Altlayer? It's a very, very good question because, if you compare what we're building at Altlayer and compare this with, let's say, something like a general purpose, L1, for example, it's Ethereum or any other, or Solana for that matter, the ecosystem building approach is going to be very different because let's say imagine you're building a general purpose chain, right? And if you want to have, let's say, a DEX like Uniswap on your chain, then a DEX makes sense only when you have enough native tokens running on that or hosted on that platform, on that chain. And once you have those tokens, a DEX would naturally make sense because people would want to trade those tokens. Similarly, for example, a lending protocol would make sense only if, when you have a stable coin natively issued on that chain. Then you can basically borrow and lend those assets quite easily using a lending borrowing protocol. So basically, the entire ecosystem building approach in a general purpose kind of model is very stack based, right? So you bring tokens. Once you have enough tokens, you bring a DEX. Once you have a stable coin, you bring a lending protocol, and so on. So it starts to kind of become a very stack based ecosystem. Well, for Altlayer, because we are building application specific solutions, it basically targets anything that is standalone. So anything that needs scalability, anything that needs customizability is something that we would target. So our go-to-market strategy is in this, for Altlayer, is mostly to focus on gaming, NFT projects, and as well as social fi projects. Anything that doesn't require too much of composability, that can stand on its own and has dependency on other applications, right? So that's kind of why if you see some of our real world events that we have done or campaigns that we did, two of them were NFT events, and one of them was actually a gaming event. And we actually showed to the community and to the broader blockchain space that a flash layer would be ideal for something like gaming. So similarly, for example, something like a social fi application would be great to be hosted on something like Altlayer. Let's take an interesting question. I think for Yaoqi would be interesting for you. There's a question on, I know that Altlayer uses security of Ethereum or other L1, L2 chains, but how secure is FlashLayer and how will you protect users from MEV? Would you like to take this one, Yaoqi?
Yeah, it's another good question. So as you know, right, for Altlayer, we are doing this optimistic rollup at the moment, and of course, in the near future, we are also seeking the research around the ZK rollup part. But right now, taking various considerations, like we're thinking like optimistic rollup at the moment is the most performant and also most EVM equivalent solution for the entire industry. So in that case, as you can see, right, for that sort of the rollups, like apart from the flash layer, basically last for a period of time, right? We also have the persistent rollup for multiple chains. So in that case, like we will have this fraud proof and to ensure the security guarantees for the dedicated L2, basically to get the security guarantee from the selected L1s. So and in that case, right, we basically we can derive the sort of a lot of benefits from the L1 like Ethereum. At the same time, internally, we are also building various lines of defense. The first line of defense is that for all the dedicated L2s we provide, right, it has multiple different sequencers. So that means like compared to the existing space, right, they're only a single server sequencer to handle all the transaction, to do the sequencing and also generating blocks. For us, by default, you can choose how many sequencers you want. Like for our past campaigns, right, we typically we use 7 sequencers, basically to avoid single point failure and to mitigate the censorship issues. That's sort of the first line of defense, a relatively decentralized sequencing system. Beyond that, the second line of defense is about the various sort of implementation of our verification system. So we provide, like granularly next year, we'll provide multiple types of verifiers. One that you can just run the verifier in your dedicated laptop or your PC to do quick verification. And beyond that, we will also provide one version that you can run the stateless verifier in even your browser. So in that case, like for some applications or users, you can immediately verify your transaction or block without waiting for the confirmation from the L2. And beyond that, we are also working on a decentralized network system, as Amber mentioned, right? Probably early next year, we will also share a little bit more with our blog post. It's a brand new sort of like decentralized sequencing system and also verification system. So that means for the L2s, we provide for our customers or developer, right? Most of blocks will basically verify by this decentralized network. So that means the third line of defense before we have the fraud proof from the L1. The fraud proof of the L1 will be the last line of defense. If you have any like sort of issues, like double spend on the L2, as a challenger, you can just send this kind of dispute message on the L1 to trigger this fraud proof on the L1. And of course, right now we have sort of like two implementations of that part. One is this one-stop fraud proof, and the other one is one instruction like sort of proof. Anyway, early next year we'll share a little bit more on these technical details. Beyond that, regarding flash layer, right, since it only lasts for a few seconds or a short period of time, right, we don't really have the time to do this kind of fraud proof or verification fully on the L2 itself within like sort of a very few seconds, right? So in that case, we have the mechanism like we will still roll up all the states to selected L1 like Ethereum Polygon. But at the same time, if you look at the settlement or the rollup, right, we also include a lot of the transaction and also state changes. So in that case, depending on the application, we can have a grace period to check what kind of transactions or state transition being run, and then they basically can do the dispute during this grace period. If there are no disputes, so all the result can be accepted. Otherwise, they can redo the NFT sale like on the dedicated L2. Beyond that, right, it's a good question. Like you asked about the MEV. Right now, we are collaborating with our partner Automata to work on the very first L2 dedicated MEV protection mechanism. So the idea that, as you can see, right now we for the L2 to prevent the front run of some bots, as you can see, right, we apply this flattened gas mechanism. So that's why when you do the FT mint, like for the OG badge mint or the OT mint, right, typically there's no like smart contract bots, you know, because we flatten the gas and basically most of the contract deploy at the last minute. The bots don't have the time to really check out the code and all the interaction in APIs or interfaces. So in that case, right, it's a sort of first come, first serve. Even you increase the gas on your side, but in the end, it's still flattened, and basically all the transaction is basically based on the timestamp. Beyond that, we will also, like as I mentioned, collaborate Automata. We are trying to have some hardware enhanced machines to ensure like not just a timestamp based, but ensure that all the transaction will be ordered in sequence instead of like there's no manner or sequencer can modify this transaction or can reorder the transaction to have some advantages. But anyway, these things are already in our plan, and we already have some sort of implementations. And next year we will just show more progress on this part. Yeah.
Okay, let me take a question from YouTube, just posted like 5 minutes ago. By someone named AJ Yoda. He says, I participated in ORT's mint event. One alt can do many transactions. So what makes users hodl alt beside for gas? Good chain needs TVL, or it will be just another chain that come and go? Thanks. So it's a very good question. So the chain which you used during the ORT campaign was a flash layer. So it was designed to be sort of short term. So basically, it was spun exactly and solely for that mint event. And once the mint event was done, the network was taken down. Unfortunately, we don't have tokens. Altlayer hasn't issued tokens yet. So basically, us as the Altlayer, as the team, were running the sequences behind those tokens. But in the long term, what's going to happen? This is something that we're building towards. Basically, in order to, let's say tomorrow someone comes and says, okay, I want to issue NFTs on one of your flash layers, then that project will have to somehow, will have to tell us or tell the protocol how much economic guarantee they want. So for example, they could say, I want the flash layer to give me at least an economic security guarantee of, let's say, $50 million. Then people from the community will have to come and stake the assets to provide that economic security. So yes, the TVL will come in, but in a slightly different way. But yeah, the chain will still be destroyed once they are not longer needed anymore. But yeah, the TVL comes from security. The security is needed because otherwise anyone can behave maliciously, and basically you would buy NFT on the flash layer, but you actually won't get your NFT on the other side, and that has to be avoided. And that comes from economic security. So all the nodes operating the network will have to ensure that they stake enough number of tokens to guarantee that economic security. Otherwise, everything will fall apart. So yes, flash layers will be one of the products that will drive short-term, event-driven initiatives. We also have persistent rollups that will drive more TVL, but flash layers will be secured by economic security that comes from tokens as well. Let's take one question that came in. I would ask Yaoqi to answer this. So the question is, I think you kind of answered this in some way, but maybe a little bit of clarification or shorter answer would be appreciated on this one. So a guy named Cameron asks, as creator, I found out about Altlayer. If I launch NFT project on Altlayer, should I do something by my own after minting, or your system will automatically send funds and NFTs to Origin chain? Thanks.
Yeah, that's something we are trying to show early next year at the dashboard. So the thing is, like, it really depends on your requirements, right? If you want to do a free mint, we will have the dashboard page, and you just click a bunch of buttons and upload your JPEGs, and then also the whitelist. So things will be done like automatically. And you don't need to do anything yourself. And even the NFT mint is sort of done, right? So the protocol will automatically roll up all the NFTs back to your selected L1s like Ethereum or Polygon. But if you want to do something like fancier, like for example, you want to do this Dutch auction or some very complex auction, meanwhile you have very like good, decent, very decent, like sort of taste about the UI. So you want to really run your own UI and want to have some, for example, some gasless wallet and to support the NFT mint. In that case, probably you need to handle your own front end. On the back end, you can just wear the dashboard or let us to set up the dedicated flash layer for you. And you deploy your contract and connect your UI with the contract and also the backend infrastructure. It's also very straightforward. You just need to switch your endpoint, the RPC endpoint for the wallet and also for some of your front end. And then at the same time, you will have the Foresight, Explorer, and all things ready. So it's sort of like you need to connect your existing API to the backend and deploy the contract on the backend. And when the thing is done, right, the empty mint is done, still, like based on your requirements, we can definitely automatically roll up all the empties to the selected L1s. Meanwhile, can also bridge the remaining token to the different chains. As I just shared, right? It depends on your requirements. There are some straightforward ways. You don't need to do anything else except the like sort of the images. Or you can really have your own customized way to build your own front end, but you just need to connect to the backend. I mean, the dedicated L2 just set up. Yeah.
Okay, let's take. I saw an interesting question on YouTube again. So for someone named Anwar Lurov. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. So the question is, what will be your revenue stream if there are almost no fees for transactions? So it's a very good question. So let's take the example of FlashLayer, right? So FlashLayers we spin up depending on demand from a certain project, and then in most likely cases there won't be transaction fees, or even if there are transaction fees, they'd be quite low to a point where that actually won't drive too much of revenue. So the model in which we are planning to operate is having a percentage based on your primary sales, for example. And this could actually that doesn't have to come to us fully. So it could, for example, be shared across the node operators who are running the FlashLayer for you. So for example, let's say if you are a popular NFT project and you want, let's say, high security for your NFTs, you would say, okay, I want at least each node operator to bring at least $10 million worth of economic security. And when they do, a portion of the primary sales will go back to those who provide the economic security to run your FlashLayer. So yes, for our revenue will be in similar model where a percentage of the primary sale could come back to us, as a part of running the infrastructure. There's one more question that I think it'd be good if Yauchi would answer this. So this question is again from YouTube, someone called God, and GAWD, not GAGOD. So God says, is the use case of Altlayer only limited to specific things like minting NFT for mass efficient people efficiently? So the basic question is Altlayer solution only for NFT mint events, or can they do much more? Yachi, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So because like as you can see, right, even during the presentation, we share a little bit more on the examples we can support. Since most of the people are quite familiar with NFT, and it's a little bit straightforward for us to demonstrate like how easy it is to use Altayer to spin off an L2 to support NFT mint. Probably we give you the impression that for Altayer or FlashLayer, we can only support NFT mint. But actually, for us, right, we can really support almost everything. So the first thing, like as you can see, right, NFT mint lasts only a few seconds, so it's a perfect like sort of scenario for FlashLayer. Beyond that, also game. If you look at Dark Forest or some other turn-based game, right, or they have some tournaments, it only lasts for a few days, like World Cup, right? Lasts a few days or even less than 1 month. In that case, you for that kind of game, you don't really need to set up a like dedicated L2 forever. You just need it to run for a few days or a month, right? So that's another like sort of perfect scenario. You can really spin off a dedicated L2 for World Cup for a month, and then handle all the million of requests from the users and also the transaction. And then once all things done, you can roll out the stage by to the selected L1 and then sort of tear down this dedicated L2. After another 4 years, you can redo the same thing. Or next year, we have the European Cup, right? And then you can, like basically for different events, we can just do different, these kind of flash layers. Beyond that, right, as I just mentioned, it's also good for some of these kind of metaverse and also DeFi projects. As I mentioned, right, flash layer, you can rent the flash layer for a period of time. But beyond that, we also provide the support of persistent rollup. So that means like for some games, like you feel that you will last forever, right? You just spin off the persistent rollup. It's perfectly fine with all the functionalities we provide. You can connect to multiple chains, and you can also have the fraud proof and all things can support one them. And sometimes, like right, the game libraries, they are not solidly compatible. So we can still support these libraries natively. So you can use your smart contract, solid contract to call these libraries. And beyond that, right, for DeFi projects, we know, right, like DeFi has a lot of perpetual exchanges, like they need this high throughput and also dedicated like vault to handle this like big volume of transactions and requests. So once with Altayer or our persistent rollup, right? As I just mentioned, right, for the first 100,000 users, you can use one rollup. Another 100,000 users, you can use another rollup. So you can really scale unlimitedly. So in that case, right, if you are building perpetual exchanges or some other DeFi protocols, you don't need to think about the limitation of the throughput. You just need to focus on your business logic. And at the same time, right, with the dedicated like rollup, you can think about some better like user experience. For example, account abstraction. You don't need to force your user to use MetaMask or some other wallets, right? You can embed with these sort of keyless solutions and then make the user experience very smooth. Beyond that, you can almost make every transaction, even like sort of the orders on chain. So then we can have a very good like proof of reserve, like all the transactions, all the deposit withdrawal will be fully on chain, so no one can cheat. And beyond that, right, I also want to mention like some our community member also mentioned about payment. Yeah, I think payment definitely can be a very ideal use case in this scenario, because as we all see, right, for payment we really need a fast financial protocol, probably sub-second, and at the same time we want to have very low transaction fees or even no transaction fees. So in that case, you once you have your idea, you build your application, you use Altayer for a dedicated L2, and then you can scale as much as possible at the same time, really to process the transaction across the different chains. I think it's also a good sort of a good scenario to build. Yeah, so these are just some like sort of examples. I believe like one is this elastic scaling, basically first time proposed by Altayer. The second is about like these various advantages of multi-VM support, multi-chain support, and meanwhile they're very modular and the customization of the entire system. Basically, you can configure all the parameters. For one of our partners, they configure like sort of the gas limit from like 30 million to 500 million. And they can also configure like sort of contract size, block time, and various interesting parameters. Beyond that, it's quite decentralized, as I mentioned, right? Decentralized sequencing system, verification system. And meanwhile, the later on, for some pure smart contract application builders, once we provide dashboard, you don't really need to code in Rust or in C++. So everything will basically handle by us. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a question again from YouTube. Someone named Night Drummer. He asks, or she asks, what throughput can be theoretically achieved using Altlayer solutions, L2 and L3, and what throughput do you expect to see in the next 6 months of tests? So, just to highlight one thing is, we did mention that the two flash layers that we used for one for the OG NFT batch minting and later one for the ORT NFT minting, they both achieved about 50 to 60 TPS, but that was not the capacity. That was just the amount of transaction that came in, and then we saw that number in real time. The same network was tested prior to these events to reach about 2,500 TPS. But again, that was with a very basic hardware that you see off the shelf kind of hardware. But imagine something a much powerful machine that you could use to run those sequences. You could actually have much better throughput. So it could be much higher than let's say 2,500 TPS. So yes, at some point we will test some of these things in the future as well. But we won't be surprised if we see much higher numbers than what we saw last time. Let's take one more question on. Someone says, how can users get involved with your project and what resources are available for them to learn more? Yachi, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so right now, I know right now, we really provide a lot of blog posts and a lot of technical sharing sessions, and it's not that straightforward for a lot of community members to be part of the ecosystem, and we will improve like next year. For example, we will provide more explanations for the technical development. Meanwhile, we are also trying to push a bunch of products, right? As I mentioned, like one dashboard and the other is called testnet. So as users, like either you can try out the dashboard spin off your own L2, or you can support to become the node validator to the testnet and to run the nodes, and probably later you can be selected as sequencers for different L2s. And beyond that, if you are not a technical person, you can just join a bunch of our like sort of campaigns, right? This year we have 3 campaigns, 2 NFT and 1 game. Next year we will just have more. And like we already aligned with one of our partners probably in February. There will be another game campaign. And later on, we just have more. Like as a non-technical person, you can just be part of the campaigns, either particularly in the Actimint or some other like, sort of interesting like sort of initiatives that we have, and be part of the ecosystem. And meanwhile, right, we will also have more these wiki pages and materials giving out next year, so people can really learn how to use Altlayer or how to leverage the SDK or APIs to build their own applications. Beyond that, we like as I mentioned, right, we are always very grateful to have all the great like sort of community members, either on Twitter, on Discord, and also on our physical events to really support them. We are super grateful to have all of you to support Altlayer. And next year, definitely we will try to provide more these kind of benefits, not just for these our OG badge and also the OT holders, but at the same time, we are also trying to provide more these opportunities to evolve all the like sort of community members in different channels into our new initiatives. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are running out of time now. It's already we started at about noon my time, so we have been live for about an hour. Let's close this, but before we close, let's ask one question to Yaoqi, something that he would like to avoid, but it's one of the hottest questions out there, and the question is when token.
Yeah, it's a really tough question. The thing like there's nothing to share at the moment, but as you can see, right, next year we'll start to launch the testnet, and basically we try to decentralize the entire infrastructure as much as possible. So later on, as you can see, right, we will have some incentive mechanism for the community and also for the new node operators and application to be part of the ecosystem. And later on, we hope after like probably 2 or 3 years, we can really decentralize the entire network. So the node operators and the sequencers can really run by the community. And then when people spin off the L2 system, so they can directly use the nodes selected by the decentralized network. So that's really the ultimate goal for Altlayer, and to really embrace the community, and at the same time make the system as decentralized as possible. So in that case, as you can see, right, it's not just about the L2 services we provide, but at the same time, it's also about the philosophy we have to make the entire network as decentralized as possible, so we can really like sort of embrace the community and also all the different nodes in the network. So together we can provide the values across different like networks and also across different applications building on top of Altlayer.
Okay, so that will be the last question. So let me thank you, and from on behalf of the entire team, thank you very much for joining in today. And thank you very much for supporting us, over the last year or so. The next year is going to be even more exciting. We are interesting things building internally, but we'll also be announcing a few other things eventually next year once we have built and those systems go into production. And so this is not the only AMA that we'll do. We'll do probably more AMAs in the future with probably more focused and thematic AMAs as well, where you could ask specific questions in a specific framework and themes. And so we would love to stay connected with you. And if you have any feedback for this AMA, do share with us on our Discord, or let us know on our Telegram or on our Twitter handle as well. So thank you very much for your time. And again, one of the 3 best questions will be sent a very special NFT from the ORT collection. So thank you very much for your time, and yeah, we'll see you soon again.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and see you very soon next year.